Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I am going to be jumping right along and sharing with you how we turned this $40 hutch from Katie Christian Ministries and upcycled it into a beautiful and gorgeous piece. So I hope you stay tuned. The day before, we decided to give it a thorough cleaning to this hutch. It was really dirty, and so we removed all of the cobwebs, the dust, and utilized some of that vinegar cleaner that I just showed you with some baking soda, some dish soap, and cleaned it out thoroughly and let it air out overnight. You will see that my husband is now removing all of the hardware from the hutch here and getting it prepped before the next step. In this portion of the video, my husband got ahead of me and began spray painting the top portion of this hutch. And what we began to use to spray paint the hutch is this Krylon chalky finish in white, along with the spray handle. That is really going to come in handy when you are spray painting projects like this, because it will give you the most even coat and it'll be a lot easier and so much better for your hands as well. Here I'm just giving you a closer look as to what the spray gun looks like. It's also made from Krylon. Here you will see him grab his drill and remove the final hinges from the cabinet drawers so that we can go ahead and finally get this bottom portion started. Here you'll notice that we propped up the bottom portion of the hutch onto a table. We are using a spray paint in a chalky finish, so that'll give you more control as to where you are going to be spraying your chalky paint. And you will see that he is going up and down motion and then side by side so that he can have better control of the chalk paint and get it coated in as even as possible. You will notice that he is repeating the same technique side by side and then up and down. In this portion of the video, my neighbors, as they were coming home from some grocery shopping, she noticed that we were doing this little project and decided to ask a couple questions as to how we upcycled certain products and what we used. You want to allow time for the hutch to dry in between coats, and as you can tell here, this is a second coat that my husband is adding to all of the pieces. After it has dried in between coats, he is using a fine grit sandpaper and sanding and distressing the areas where I want to give that chippy vintage distress look. He's using a clean paintbrush just to remove any dust or debris that the sandpaper might kick up. Here I grabbed all of the hardware and I placed it on a plastic bag. I placed it on top of the grass, and I wish I would have placed it in a more flat surface, but I am using the Krylon Rust in Oil Rub Bronze just to give it a fresh coat. For some weird reason, this was dripping on me a little bit, so I am not sure why it was doing that, but I was still able to make it work and give it the color that and coat that I wanted. For me, there is no right or wrong way to distress your piece. You distress your furniture piece the way that you want it, the way that it's going to embody something that you are going to enjoy for you and your home. Now, the counter portion of the bottom piece of the hutch was made out of particle board, and it did have some damage, so my husband ended up popping that portion out. He did go to a Lowe's and grab a piece of wood. I myself enjoy pieces of wood that have knots, grains, imperfections. And the reason why I do enjoy that is because once you gather that piece and stain it, those pieces of knots, grains, and imperfections are going to pop out more and give your furniture piece or whatever you are working on more character. So he did end up measuring the piece, grabbed his saw, and he is cutting it to size now. After the piece was cut, he's using his electric sander. He is going, as you can tell, with the grain, and he is using here a fine sandpaper and smoothing out that top portion of what's going to be the counterpart of that bottom portion of the hutch. As you can tell here, he's also using the edges and lightly giving it a smooth buff so they are not extremely sharp. And that piece is going to be going right up top here, and I think it's going to look absolutely gorgeous as soon as that piece is on there and set. Even though you cut the piece to size, you want to go back to your hutch or the piece you're working on, and you want to go ahead and place it on there, and you want to make sure that that is how you want it to look. Do you want it to go a little bit more off to the sides, or you want it to go flush to the piece? That is all your preference. So we're just taking a look at the piece here and making sure that this is exactly how we wanted it to look. I don't know about you, but I just love all of those little imperfections on that wood. It looks absolutely gorgeous. I'm here at the workshop that we have set up in our garage, and this is our stain / brush station that we decided to create in our garage. And I'm just looking at all of the options that I have just so that I can make a final decision as to what stain I'm going to be using for that piece. Here my husband is grabbing a dry, clean rag and removing any dust particles that the piece might have just to get it ready and prepped for staining. So I finally decided what stain colors I'm going to be using to stain the wood piece, and I decided to use 2 different types of stains. So here I am going to be using Minwax in Classic Gray, and then shortly here you're also going to be seeing that I'm going to be using Minwax in the color Jacobean. Those are 2 of my favorite combinations that I like to use when working on wood pieces. I have a plastic container where I'm going to be adding those those two stains and mixing them together. I am not going to necessarily measure, so I'm going to be eyeballing and just pouring to the consistency and color that I like. And for me, that just gives it a unique color every single time you are going to be working on a piece. So this gets me really excited. So my husband taught me something new, and he told me he was going to water pop the wood. And I kind of gave him a funny look, wondering what he was talking about. And he later explained that water popping is you grab a wet piece of rag and you wet the wood prior to staining it. What that does is that it opens the grains from the wood, and once you stain the wood, it allows the stain to be on more vibrant and more beautifully saturated in the wood. Once he is done water popping the wood, he's gonna make sure that the piece of wood is left to dry a bit before staining it. Here he is using a clean brush that he is dipping into the custom stain that we created, making sure that the brush is completely saturated but not dripping wet, and just giving it a coat on the wood going towards the grain. You'll see him stop ever so often, and with a clean dry rag, he's going to be removing any excess stain from the wood. And as the wood starts to dry, you're going to notice the colors really popping out in the wood. And I love this color combination, as I mentioned to you, with the Jacobean and the classic gray, because it really makes a difference and it gives the wood piece such a beautiful, beautiful color that I really enjoy. I don't know about you, but for me this is so satisfying to watch. Oh my gosh, I am loving the way this came out. As mentioned before, there was an old piece of particle board that sat on top here. We are now adding a piece of solid wood, so my husband is using a level to make sure that everything is as even and secured as possible when we add that piece there. We did have to do a little trimming on the top. Again, this is all part of the process, so we just want to make sure that that piece of wood is as level as possible when it sits there. He is making sure that everything is as flushed and the way that we want it before we secure it, as he is enjoying and jamming to some music playing in the background. We're almost done here. The final step is to seal the hutch, and making sure that we protect the wood and everything that we've worked on. So we're going to be using the Krylon matte sealer in natural, and he's going to be giving a couple coats on this to seal and protect the hutch and the wood. I cannot be any more happier in how this hutch came out. My husband did such an amazing job working on this hutch for me, and the fact that it was only $40 and I saw this piece and the beauty and potential that it had, I know that this is going to be something that we are going to be able to enjoy for the years to come. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next video. I would hope you comment, subscribe, and leave a comment below.